The silence that followed, I thought it was the most profound instance of silence that I've seen in a Nollywood production in a very long time. In Efik or Ibibio land, when a child is born, this is the song that the community will come together to sing to welcome the child. Never forget forever. Pearl, just stick with writing and making videos, okay? Today we're discussing The House of Secrets, a suspense drama that was released exclusively on Prime Videos in June of 2023. And so yes, this is a throwback. Guys, please allow me ask a favor. This is Jason Abaga, and if that name sounds familiar, yes, those are Bagas. M.I. Abaga, Jesse Jags Abaga. This is their baby brother. Jason is in end-stage kidney failure and he needs our help. He needs $50,000 to get a kidney. Please let's help Jason get his kidney. He's a friend, he's a colleague, he's a brother, he's a son, but most important of all, he's dad to the most amazing little girl in the world. Please help us help Jason so that his little girl does not have to grow up without a dad, but also because Jason really deserves to be here. Thank you so much. There's a GoFundMe link in the description below. Could you please consider contributing? $50,000 is a lot, but every little bit helps, and eventually we will get Jason his kidney. Would you be a part of this, please? Thank you. The House of Secrets is written by Dolapo Adigun, produced by Victoria Akujabi, and directed by Niyi Akinmolayan. Now, Niyi is one of my favorite people practicing film out of Nollywood, and I say this for a very specific reason. Niyi has a deep and abiding love for this industry, and this is, I don't just say this lightly, it's evidenced by his many interventions, initiatives targeted especially at young and upcoming filmmakers, whether in the form of mentorship, whether it's collaboration, whether it's grants, or even just creating opportunities for young filmmakers. And so I respect Niyi a very great deal for this. The House of Secrets does not surprise me because Niyi has an interest in movies in stories like this. This one particularly is very reminiscent of his short film Room 315. That one's a psychological drama that resulted from a screenwriting contest that he put together a few years ago. So I'll put a link to that short film below in the description. Guys, wish me luck. This is the 4th time I'm filming this particular review for A House of Secrets. It was the very first video, if you can believe it, it was the very first video I ever filmed for this channel, and then repeated 2 more times, and I'm telling you, each time something happened and I had to tank it. So fingers crossed that this is the one that makes it. Let's get straight into it. The synopsis as seen on Prime. A sheltered woman's past comes back to haunt her when she's thrown in jail for being an accomplice to her spy lover, and 20 years later a group rescue her from jail and sets up a semblance of her old house to make her remember a secret number her spy lover left with her. I think they should go back to log lines instead of synopsis. Because, you know, guys, like I always say, this is your movie's calling card. Let's get into it. There was a lot of buzz around this movie when it first came out, but it's died down a lot. So have you seen The House of Secrets? And if you haven't, please go watch it, because this is going to have spoilers, okay? I always try, but I fail to make it spoiler free. So go watch it. Let's talk about this movie, beginning with a summary of the plot. This movie is about Sarah. No, I'm not going to say this movie is about. Let me just say, because I don't know who this movie is about. Sarah, a formerly incarcerated and institutionalized woman, finds herself in the midst of kind strangers whose assumed entire purpose is to help her regain her memory. She does her best to cooperate with them, but her helpers use increasingly dubious means to try and tricks to help her jog her memory. Eventually, she's pushed too far and goes spiraling. After a particularly disturbing dream that upsets both her physical and mental composure, Sarah runs away. But on leaving the room she's been trapped in, she steps forward 20 years into the future. literally. And this is where the plot, and by this I don't mean the plot of the movie, but the scheme of the people who have held her here, this is where that plot begins to unravel. The conspirators are forced to tell Sarah the truth, which is that their benevolence has not been as altruistic as they've had her believe. There's a crucial piece of information trapped in the foggy recesses of Sarah's lost memory that they need to retrieve in order to put a stop to the aspirations of an unpalatable candidate in the upcoming presidential election. Sarah begins to cooperate with them as her memories come back to her in flashbacks. Events eventually reach a climax where battle lines are drawn, failure appears imminent, and everything is at risk. PSA, this is the end of the spoiler-free section, so once again, please go watch this movie. All right, straight up, what worked? Number one, Najite Dede. Najite is such an amazing, phenomenal actress. I've known her for years, so this is not a surprise to me, and it was a surprise to me that it was a surprise to so many. But I'm glad that so many people got to experience the greatness that is this actor. She's such a thespian. She is such a performer. She is just incredible. And another outstanding performance was by Faqua. Now, this movie came out in June. So at the time when I first watched this movie, I was like, who? Faqua is a surprise, you know. I've only known his name but never really seen him in like serious films, so it was a real surprise and a pleasant one for me. And since then I've kept up with him, and so saying this now is not the way I expressed it when I first filmed this review. I need to stop referencing all the failed videos I made of this review. So just to say that for this movie I found him and the character Panam completely believable. The other members of the cast pulled their weight, to varying degrees based on their experience. Emeka and Nwgbaraocha, also this was the first time I had seen him, but since then I've seen him in a few other things. Irele, same thing, and they did as good, I suppose, as could be expected and as was required of them in this role, again to varying degrees of experience. Funlola, Aofiyebi, Raimi, she's another person that I absolutely adore, I think because from the days of Violated. However, I have heard some people say they struggle with the way she speaks, and maybe for me it's born of familiarity that I had no issues with it. And I think that in this movie there was nothing wrong with the way she typically speaks. Maybe there are some roles that she might not fit, but I thought that she fit here quite well. Femi Jacobs, he's also another really prominent and really fantastic actor. Henshaw, I always love her. She's also one of the old timers, old but good. Not old as in age, old as in experience, how long she's been on the scene in Nollywood, and hugely experienced, as I said. Kepi Ekpenyong, that's another person that I absolutely always enjoy, and yes, he's a zaddy, okay? Anicha, with her it's like this for me. In this movie, not great, but I guess also she was not a major character, so it was okay. The sound. If there's one aspect of this film that Niyi took his spirit and put into, it was the sound. The sound in this movie was beautiful. The sound was glorious. I loved it. I loved the score. I loved the theme music, the soundtracks, just all of it. There were some aspects of production design that were just really, really well done. The costume was beautifully understated. Makeup was really good. And then the set designs, there were some exceptions, but in general, the sets also were really realistic and really well done. Cinematography in specific places was brilliant, but also overall, it was very competent and moving. The camera work, there were some shots that were just really, really wonderful, and that's no mean thing. The technical aspects in this movie really shone. The editing was really great, and there were some transitions that were just absolutely mesmerizing. The story, there were some really good story moments, as well as instances of dramatic irony and great use of subtextual and visual storytelling. Here are some examples. In that scene when General Sani was committing murder, just right behind him on his order someone was getting killed, and he was addressing the voting public. I thought that was really great dramatic irony. And by the way, did you guys notice that General Sani was always only campaigning to women? And it made me wonder, what are they saying with that? Are they saying that women are the more gullible? But okay, let me not, whatever. This fight scene between Panam and Malik, I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was very credible. I really enjoyed Daniel's wide-eyed innocence, giddiness in that scene where Mrs. Lawal recruited him, and I really liked also the way that scene transitioned, because that was a flashback, and then when it transitioned into his emotional state in real time, I thought that was beautiful. One of my favorite scenes in this movie was the scene where Daniel and Sarah first saw each other as mother and son, and when they hugged, if I tell you that the earth turned one one final time on his axis and it's settled. It just felt like everything was right with the world in that scene, and it was such beautiful storytelling. The way it all went silent, the silence that followed, I thought it was the most profound or poignant instance of silence that I've seen in a Nollywood production in a very long time. Absolutely loved that. Now, Panam and Sarah, I loved their loved the love story. Well, I don't know if it was the slow motion, I don't know whether it was the flashback. Everything looks good in black and white. Monochromatic color schemes really bring out the love when it's also coupled with nice music and slow motion. Let's just say the love story gave what it tried to give. And also, much was made of the meet cute. It was really good, except for Irele's hair. Okay, let's not talk more about that hair. In 1999, I think it was. I loved the tastefulness of the lovemaking scene, and also I loved that we had Nala, the cat, there being a voyeur. Then there were some subtleties in the way that events were time-stamped that I thought were done very well, like the way we had the cortina, and how they used that to like reflect a certain time in the past. I thought that was good. I enjoyed the mix of language, how we had English, Hausa, and especially for me, Ibibio. Look, if you're from like minor tribes or whatever, you're not used to like seeing your language, or at least, well, Ibibio is not my language, but I speak the language. I speak Efik, but I'm from somewhere in Cross River State, and I'm never going to hear my own actual language on screen, let me be real, unless I bring it. So it's such a gift. Although since that time, since the House of Secrets came out, we've had Shantytown, but please, more of that. So I really enjoyed it. So for instance, the way Kate Henshaw was so organic, the way she would break into, like when she expressions, like she would say when she said Kentam Mandorante, I really loved it. Altogether, this film was a really good looking film. There was great attention to detail. I think you can expect that from Niyi. There was wonderful directing, which was also bolstered by very adept cinematography. All of that was great, but this movie was far from perfect. Let's move on to exploring some of the scenes and decisions that took this movie from potentially incredible to just head-scratchingly average. So let's do it. What did not work for this movie? Number one, the story encompassing the plot and structure. First of all, this script could have been tighter. Let's start there, because the story, yes, but the writing in itself, the script could have been tighter and plotted better. And in the end, this just felt like the movie itself altogether felt like a huge missed opportunity. They were afraid to push the envelope. That's the writer was afraid to push the envelope on the morality of the characters and have them make morally ambiguous or outright reprehensible decisions that would have raised the stakes. So basically, I guess you could say that they played it safe. Characters did things that made no sense. There were so many missed opportunities to deepen storytelling and elevate the tension, conflict, and stakes. There was no real danger. Like I said, there were not even stakes, even for the main character. And so therefore, there was no tension. And what's really painful and frustrating is that all of these things could very easily have been fixed with just more thoughtfulness to the story. There was no real tracking of timelines, and correspondingly no increase in the pressure on Sarah to perform. And so again, that did not help with building tension in this movie. The backstory took up too much time. That was time, valuable time that could have been better employed to tell the story that was in front of us. Exposition was a lot. That's a complete sentence. Sometimes it appears they forgot things that they had established. I have some very obvious instances, but I don't want to go into too much detail. Opportunities for emotional plot drama were missed. Also, another incongruency that we had was the scene where towards the end, when Daniel promised to always protect Sarah, I thought that moment was ruined by the flashback, because then they took us to the flashback where Panam promised Sarah that he would always protect her, but we know how that went. And so I was like, I understand why that flashback, but why did it have to happen in that scene? Because then it undermined Daniel's words. I did not believe that their plot, that's their scheme to bring down the general or whatever, that it had any chance of succeeding, and because of that, it made the entire premise and the entire movie feel unnecessary. I did not feel the energy of an ongoing election and campaign. For the cinematography, I've said that it was really, really good for the most part. There was some weird camera work here and there. there. But one very glaring aspect was in the beginning, that first scene between Sarah and Dr. Badmus? Is that his name? Between them, yes, Dr. Badmus, there was that weird camera work, that wrong placement and wrong arrangement that just really, really took me out of the experience. In the scene where the actors were acting in the script, you know what I mean? When they were in that simulated room and they were trying to pretend to Madam Sarah, Mrs. Sarah, whatever, that it was 1999. They were acting within the acting, and I don't know if that was deliberate, but God, it sucked. Art direction, there were some things also with that they didn't feel true. That house, first of all, I had a problem with like just spatial awareness in that space that she was. The house did not look 1999. I think there was just something off with the depiction of the look and feel of, the different time, the time that was supposed to be 1999 and then the time that was supposed to be, was that 2019 now? It just didn't feel real, either time periods. I had a question about the whole simulation, right? Like, does anyone know why she had to believe it was 1919? Because I know what the story says, right? But is there any science to back that up? I don't know, because isn't it ironic that it was actually when she left the room, that was when her memory actually started to come back. So it was Emeka who came up with this idea, but the fact that Dr. Badmus, who is supposed to be a psychologist, bought into it as well, he's a very bad doctor. There was a real problem also in this movie with emotional coherence, emotional transitions, and emotional truth. The psychological plot line, it wasn't handled properly at all, and that really, really stressed me out, and I'll discuss that in a little bit. Now, I know that they were playing with the mother and son bond between Sarah and Daniel, but I don't know why she was feeling unsafe, but there was no reason why she would trust Daniel, because once she realized what was going on, he was part of the plotters. So even if I know that they were trying to probably play the thing where on a deeply like subliminal level she recognized him as her child, but it didn't track, it didn't work. The reason they told, that's Mrs. Lawal and the rest of them, the reason they told Sarah that Daniel is her son, it made no sense. And even worse, it was a missed opportunity to elevate the drama and conflict in this movie. And here are two options that would have really helped heighten the stakes, the tension, and the drama in this movie. The first one is that they told Sarah, like when her memory came back to her, that she remembered that she was pregnant. One option is that they could have told her, yes, you have a son, we know where he is, and if you help us, we help you back. Because let's go back to the fact that Sarah literally has no reason on this God's earth to be helping them with their whole scheme. If you've been incarcerated for 20 years and you get out of there, I'm sorry, but the last thing that you're concerned about is who becomes president of Nigeria. It's not going to change the fundamental facts of your life, so there was really no reason. And so that's why I said that they were afraid to push the envelope, because they should have created real tension with her making a decision, I don't want to do this, and them having to employ methods to force her to continue to help them. But for some reason, they didn't do that. And so I'm saying that using this Daniel child reveal, they could have easily done that, where she says, I'm not helping you guys anymore. And they're like, well, we can take you to your son. We can get you to your son if you help us. And there you raise the stakes. You increase the conflict. The first option would have been not to let Daniel know that any of this had happened. And then the second option would be to let Daniel know that this had happened and Sarah is his mom. For me, both options hold equal weight, right? For potential emotional stakes. If Daniel knew, it would have been wonderful, and also if he didn't know, it would still have worked. Imagine if, however, he did know, or even if he didn't know but the audience knew, how just profound and fraught every scene going forward between them would have been. Missed opportunity. And then if it was the second option and Daniel was told, imagine if then he had to struggle every scene that you see them together, him having to struggle with continuing to fool Sarah, which would have been a huge conflict on his emotional core that had been established for his character. Missed opportunity. Also, if Sarah had been promised help to find her son, it would have then made sense when she threw Mrs. Eckert under the bus, right? Because then it would have been clear that it was a crisis of choice for her, between maybe implicating, I don't know, an old-time friend, somebody who had been sort of like a surrogate mother to her, and her own child. Then she would have had a choice to make. This character didn't really have any choices to make. Now, the entire premise of this movie rested on them finding proof, right, of General Sani's plot in 1999 to disrupt the democratic process, the swearing in of a new president that he planned to turn into a massacre. Now, my question is, did that actually happen? Did he succeed back then? Because I don't know. There's no evidence of that happened. Because also from what happened in 1999, it didn't appear that massacre ever happened. So the question now is, what really is in those papers that is so important if a massacre never actually happened? And then more importantly, does it matter ultimately in Nigeria as we know it? I don't think so. So again, it just made this movie feel a little bit pointless. Emotional transitions were missing. Here are some examples. When Daniel took Sarah to the post office and she immediately started to remember, when she first remembered Panam, I never heard her ask any questions. I mean, she had a lot of questions she could have asked, like, and so who has been writing me? But she didn't seem to have any questions. And so it was almost like she knew, don't worry, the scriptwriters are going to help me remember the rest according to how they are plotting the story. And then when she came out or back from that flashback where she first realized that she was pregnant in the past, she came back out of that flashback looking at their stupid board. And guys, when I tell you that I lost my fucking mind, I absolutely lost my mind. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, she just realized that in the past she was pregnant, and she comes out of that looking at their board. As though that was not bad enough, though, her reaction, which did not feel emotionally true, they now took her from there into yet another flashback. And now I've got to say that flashback was important because that's the flashback where Panam gave her the papers. I agree that it needed to happen, but it did not need to happen at that particular point because it disrupted the organic emotion of her realizing in the present day that she had been pregnant in the past. And so when she now reacted a bit after the second flashback, it felt like a delayed response and it lost its power. And so that's what I mean when I say that there was a problem with structure. Let's move on. The other presidential candidate, Durosimi Williams, did she know about all these shenanigans and how this poor woman was being abused? So I was wondering, like, is it a case of to make an omelette to have to break a few eggs? I don't know. Also, why was Sarah left alive? I mean, back then, why did the general let her go? Because we know who the general was as far as this story that was being told, and he did not seem like, and you know, again, these things have very simple fixes. It could have just been, give us a sympathetic thug back then who just decided, I cannot kill a pregnant woman. Fixed. And then in that way, we would have preserved the general's villainy status, right? So that in real time, he has somebody that he's asking, why is she alive? And then he kills that person. And then we're like, yeah, he's a bad guy, all right, you know, because this general really did not do anything. Those extras on that train, they were so bad. That's a complete sentence. Now, the final scene in front of the fire. Listen, can we forget that fire ever happened? I remember when I reviewed Jagun and I said Niyi Akinmolayan has brought that his fire from the House of Secrets to Jagun, but at the time, I guess it didn't make sense because I hadn't published this review. So now you understand why I made that statement, because gosh, you know, those people just standing there coughing, but the way that they were over dramatizing and gesturing, honestly, they just looked like characters in Subway Surfer. It was too much. And then, you know, Mrs. Eket, she said she had the papers in a hole behind her bedroom wall. And then next thing, we see Daniel emerging from. So are we saying that Daniel went into a burning building and was digging in a burning building in a house that he had never been in before? Like, just big question is, why did Mrs. Eket even still have those papers? Plot convenience. The dialogue in this movie could have been better. I didn't love that General Sani had a heart attack because it did feel like very Deus Machina. It did. However, let's just face it that as far as justice in Nigeria and the Nigerian context, I guess that's the best we could have hoped for. So I'm not too mad. I have to say though that I don't think that Daniel looks enough like Panam for the general to have had that reaction. Not to mention the fact that so far the general had not treated Daniel and his mom like any kind of threat. So there was really no reason for their presence, even if he was hallucinating. There was no reason for their presence to cause such a reaction from him. All right, I've said all of that, but I want us to circle back so that we can end on a high note with some of the beautiful stuff. So let's talk about some scenes I really liked, starting with the transition when Sarah had the baby and Panam was killed. If I tell you that I lost it, it was mad. It was insane. I loved it. When I lost it again was when that scene, when even if it was a delayed reaction, when eventually she came undone and was asking, where's my baby? Where's my baby? Where's my baby? Oh my God, I had goosebumps. It was insane. But let me tell you the scene that I actually cried when I watched the movie. And then the first 2 times I filmed this review, I am more in control now. And of course, so much time has passed that I don't have the same reaction. But I actually genuinely did cry when I first filmed this review and I was trying to express how I felt in this scene. Was when Mrs. Eckert first met Daniel and then she started singing Coco Imondi, Coco Imondi. I cried. Let me tell you why. And I really believe that this is something that the actor herself must have brought into the story, because I don't believe that that existed in script. And I hope she herself explained to them the significance of that song. In Efik or Ibibio land, when a child is born, this is the song that the community would come together to sing to welcome the child. It means, translation, Kokoi Mong Mong is water, Koi is fetch. Go fetch water and bring, let's bathe the baby. And that's the way to say welcome to the world. And so that song was how Sarah's status as a mother was confirmed and Daniel's status as a child was confirmed. Before that time, yes, they're mother and son, but Mrs. Eckert had the status, had the qualification to confer the official titles of them on them of mother and son. That was such a powerful moment, but the kind of moment that is lost when you don't really understand the cultural context and interpretation of something. My final thing that I really liked was that final postcard image in the movie. I thought it was a really wonderful way to end the movie, and that closing track that followed, never forget that for don't worry, singing is not my thing, it's not, so that forever, I loved it. I really loved it. But let's wrap up by asking, what was my big question at the end of this movie was, what was this story though? I wasn't sure. Was it a story about the fate of a nation resting on a woman's ability to recover her memory? Was it a story about a woman regaining her memory, her freedom, which is a more personal story, regaining her memory, her freedom, reuniting with, I don't know, her past life or whatever, vindication and another chance at life? Was it a tragic love story? Was it a story of people needing to save a country from potential dictator, which means the story of these conspirators? Or I don't know, because, and in the end I felt like the movie itself did not know what story it wanted to tell, and so it ended up not telling any of these stories particularly well. And who was driving this plot? Again, if we don't know what story it was, how can we know who was driving the plot? What active decisions did Sarah make that moved this story forward? Was she the protagonist? Because if she was, then she was a very passive protagonist, and there were opportunities to give her conflict and to make decisions which were not followed through. What value statements did this movie make, or what worldview did it propose or propound, promote? You know, what was it? Is it love is worth it no matter how much tragedy it brings? Was it to make an omelette or elect a president, as the case may be? You must break a few eggs or take advantage of a vulnerable person and the end justifies the means? Was it that good triumphs over bad because there are forces beyond us that ensure balance in the world? And I don't know. You know, and so in the end it just left me with more questions than answers and just more confused. And again, what did this movie try to say? And I really hate when I end the movie and have such big questions about the movie. And so ultimately I have to wonder, where was the heart of the filmmaker in this? I mean, apart from in the music, in the story, in the film, where was the heart of the filmmaker? And now the final most important question of this movie is, did we see Nala again? I mean the cat, because don't tell me that you guys only brought Nala to use as prop in this movie. Justice for Nala, okay? All right, guys, that's where we wrap up today's review. I have to say that I was really interested in this movie because I was interested with the concept. It was not a particularly exciting viewing experience. Again, is it worth your time? Yes, but was it particularly exciting? Not quite. All the same, would I recommend this movie? Yes. I think it's a really good attempt at what it was trying to do. I just wish they had done a better job nailing down the story that they wanted to tell, and because all the any technical issues that this film had were really forgivable. My main issue was the story. I'm going to score this movie a 6.5 out of 10. And if you ever question my scores, listen, let me say to you that my scoring system is just an expression. My stinginess with scores is an expression of my optimism of what we're capable of. So let's not start giving out the 8s and the 9s already, because there's still so much room left to grow. If you've enjoyed this review, guys, and you've gotten value out of your time here, please be sure to hit the subscribe button below, like, share, comment, do all the wonderful things. You guys are great. Let me just tell you, my channel has been growing and I'm so excited. I'm so grateful to all the people who have taken it upon themselves to like, and I want to say specifically to Aofiyebi, who just made my channel her business. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. And what do I always say to you? You have the right to an incredible viewing experience. Why am I stumbling over my words? You have the right to an incredible viewing experience, so never settle. Forever.